Searing pain tore through my gut, making me double over. I never imagined my wife could be such a harsh pain. My breath was shallow, my vision blurry around the edges, and I could barely support myself against the rusty gas pump. However, their laughter was the only sound louder than the pain pulsing through my body. Serena, in the driver's seat of our opulent SUV, had her nails freshly done. Through the open window, she grinned at me, while her mother, Gloria, tapped her fingers repeatedly. Against the wheel, Tessa, my sister, sat comfortably in the front and rear seats, both of them staring at me. While enjoying a pleasant stroll, Serena yelled out to her in a scornful manner, as though she were watching some pathetic, predictable sitcom. Her voice was light-hearted, as if everything had been a joke. And suddenly, there was laughter. She pressed the throttle. The tires squealed on the pavement, kicking up gravel and dust as they drove away, abandoning me like a piece of trash. And suddenly, they were gone. For a few seconds, I just stood there in complete shock, unable to move. My mind was struggling to catch up, to comprehend what had just occurred. I moaned in pain in the rear seat of that vehicle as intense nausea rolled over me. My stomach rumbled. The next time I was by myself, my legs shook as I pushed myself to stand, sweat streaming down my face. Despite the scorching, dry heat of the midday sun, every muscle in my body screamed in protest. It went down my forehead, mixing with the dizziness clouding my mind. I felt a sharp, stabbing sensation as I pressed a hand against my lower abdomen, which tightened with every weak breath. I fumbled for my phone, but as I reached into my pocket, I realized I didn't have it. I hadn't thought much of it earlier when Serena insisted on keeping it for safekeeping when we pulled over for gas. But now, as I clenched my jaw, the realization hit me. This wasn't just cruelty. It was planned. A strong wave of nausea rolled over me. I stumbled forward, unable to focus on anything but the gas station up ahead. It was an old place, one of those dilapidated pit stops that only existed in areas where nobody seemed to care. A flickering neon open sign hung weakly atop a solitary, worn white building with peeling blue trim. A man stood just outside the entrance, arms crossed, watching me warily. He looked stocky, maybe in his 60s, with silver hair and sun-weathered skin. He yelled out as I hobbled near him, "Hey, son, you okay?" I wasn't, but I forced out, "Just need a minute." The elderly man narrowed his eyes. "You don't look like you have a minute." A woman hurried out of the shop behind him. She was in her 50s, wearing a floral-patterned frock. With a worried expression, she gasped and clutched the man's arm. "He's burning up." I tried to wave them away, to reassure them that I was fine, but my voice broke. My throat was dry, raw. The man, Carl, the proprietor of the gas station, stepped forward, his sharp eyes darting toward the road. "She left you here?" His voice was hushed but sharp. I nodded weakly. Carl muttered something under his breath, then pointed his thumb toward the building. "Ellen, get him some water." I didn't protest. I couldn't. Every step felt heavier. As soon as I stepped beyond the threshold into the small air-conditioned shop, my vision swam. The cool air surrounded me, a harsh reminder of how weak I had become. Ellen rushed over with a bottle of water, her eyes locked onto mine, concern darkening her features. Carl studied me for a moment, then exhaled sharply through his nose. He turned to face the surveillance cameras mounted on the walls, the same cameras that had captured everything. "They just drove away," he muttered. The knot in my throat tightened. The pain wasn't just physical anymore. It was the realization that the woman who had vowed to love and protect me, the woman I had shared a home with, had discarded me like I didn't exist. Ellen grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the news." I jerked my head in her direction. She met my gaze with a look that left no room for argument. "People need to know what kind of woman does this to her own husband." Carl grunted in satisfaction. Damn right they do. I should have protested. I should have begged them to stop. But my body trembled with pain and exhaustion, and deep down I knew they were right. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a story the world needed to hear. Carl nodded and confirmed that the entire incident was captured on security tape. As soon as I saw him struggling, I knew something wasn't right. A man wouldn't act like that unless he was... Before turning back to the camera, Lisa's lips formed a thin line, indicating she was quite ill. What we have here is not just a case of marital desertion. This is brutality from a man in clear medical. His own wife and her family were left in distress, stuck without a phone, without a vehicle, and with no means of assistance. He might not have made it through the ordeal without the generosity of strangers. The cameraman cut to the security tape playing in the background. It showed Serena grinning as she drove away, her jovial, icy laughter reverberating around the little room. Lisa stared back at me. "Do you have anything you want to say to your wife?" I sighed. My voice was firm, but my body was weak. I want others to realize who she truly is. The interview ended. By the time Lisa's story was published, my phone had been packed up by the staff after it was found in Serena's abandoned suitcase, which Ellen had carefully examined. When I finally got it back, it was blasting with texts, missed calls, and social media alerts. Then, my stomach turned when I saw one particular notification. Trending on Twitter, wife abandons spouse to die in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't just my story anymore. This was now everyone's Serena. She had no idea what was in store for her. Once the story went viral, her life was going to collapse in a very strange way. I felt a wave of joy wash over me. She had abandoned me to die. And now she was about to watch her entire life burn. I barely survived the night before the ambulance finally arrived, sirens wailing. By that point, I was sliding in and out of consciousness as paramedics rushed in. I remember flashes, Ellen's anxious face hovering over me, Carl's rough voice urging me to hold on, the icy feel of the stretcher as they loaded me into the darkness of the ambulance. When I awoke, I was in a hospital bed. A dull, numbing sensation seeped into my arm as the IV dripped. A doctor stood next to me, looking at my chart. "You're lucky," he said, his expression worried. I shook my head. "If you had been out there much longer, we'd be having a different conversation." I should have felt relieved, thankful. Instead, I was overwhelmed by a painful sense of betrayal. Serena, the woman I had built a life with, had chuckled as she drove off, abandoning me to die on the side of the road. But karma was already in motion. When the doctor handed me my phone, he said, "Your friends have been calling." I scowled as I unlocked the screen. More than 50 missed calls. Then my phone rang again. Nicole, my best friend since college. As soon as I answered, her voice cracked. "Oh my God, I swear to God, I thought you were... she gasped, barely able to breathe. Sharp Jesus. Do you even know what's happening? I frowned. What do you mean? Nicole laughed briefly, without humor. You're all over the internet. I sat up slightly, wincing at the dull pain in my side. Your story with Serena went viral overnight. The news station broadcasted the footage, and now it's everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, every major platform. You're the most talked about man right now. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled as I opened Twitter. The first thing I saw, my own pale, exhausted face. Lisa Monroe's interview plastered at the top with the headline, "Brutal Wife Abandons Husband to Die." The replies were vicious. "This is the most heartless thing I've ever seen. Serena Wilson, you'd better pray you never need help, because the world is done with you. Sue her for everything. He nearly died." People weren't just angry, they were furious. Everywhere I looked, Serena was being torn apart. Not just her, but her entire family. Then I saw it. A screen grab of Serena's latest Instagram post. Gloria. And Tessa relaxing on a beach. The caption? Finally, some peace and quiet. No more drama, just peaceful beach vibes. My stomach twisted. She had no idea. The replies were brutal. Peace and quiet? Your husband nearly died. You're a sociopath who deserves everything coming your way. Hope you enjoy your vacation, because your life is over when you get back. I clenched my jaw. The world was seeing her for who she truly was. Then, something even more shocking. A quote from Serena's own father. I am appalled and ashamed of what my daughter did. I am cutting all financial support and severing all ties. She does not embody our family's values. I blinked. Read it again. Nicole's voice broke through my thoughts. Did you see it? I sighed. Her own father had disowned her. Nicole mumbled, I saw it. She's done for. And you know what? She deserves it. A large part of me agreed. But a small part, the part that had once loved her, couldn't believe that the woman I fought for had betrayed me so cruelly. Then, Nicole sent me a link. I clicked. An email exchange filled my screen. My blood ran cold. Mother, we need to make him look unstable. Once he's out of the picture, we'll make sure he's never in the baby's life again. The world around me dimmed. I read it again. My breathing grew heavy. Nicole's voice was cautious. They weren't just trying to leave you. They were trying to erase you. I exhaled sharply. Then I muttered, I suspected she was pregnant. Silence. Then, Nicole's voice filled with icy fury. They planned this for months. I gripped my phone so tightly, my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just abandonment. This was war, and Serena had no idea what was coming.